I'm Julia Hartley. I'm in the third and final year of my Leverhulme Fellowship at the University of Warwick.
And why did you choose this particular postdoctoral fellowship and why that university?
So I tried quite a few different types of postdoctoral fellowships. I also applied for JRFs, which are the typical fellowships you get at Oxford and Cambridge colleges. I didn't get anywhere with those because I think they're so competitive, because they'll be open to several disciplines. So your application is in a pile of with 1,000 others. Whereas Leverhulme, which is what I ended up getting somewhere with, there are more stages in which you are certain your work is being read, because first you need to find a mentor and a university that wants to take your project. So you have that whole process of getting your proposal ready for them and through them. And then it goes on to the actual really competitive bit where the Leverhulme pick their fellows. So it was partly the fact that it felt more transparent. I had a clear idea of the different stages and what I needed to do. Whereas with the JRFs, you felt like you sent your application into the void and you never knew what happened to it or where it went. And then with choosing Warwick, it was really about the mentors I found. So I really encourage people to think about that relationship with mentors, because it has both similarities and differences as with a supervisor. So as with your supervisor, they are really great people who always, be the first to give you feedback on your work and also more practical advice about, where to publish your work and things like that. But at the same time, because you're now a postdoc and not a PhD, it's not as necessary that the research interests and publications of your mentor align with your own work. So to give you my case as an example, my main mentor at Warwick is James Hodkinson, who's actually in German, and my project is in French literature. But James is someone who works on representations of Islam in 19th century German literature, and I work on representations of Persia or Iran in 19th century French literature. So he's a great fit in terms of he's interested in the same debates, same ideas, methodological issues. And then I have a second mentor who's called Margot Wiskin. And Margot is someone who works on 18th century literature, but she also has a side interest in representations of Iran. So she edited this book with I.B. Tauris, Iran and the West. I can't remember the full longer title, but it's pretty good. And so again, she's someone who, she's not a specialist in 19th century French literature, but she's familiar with the wider context of representations of Iran. So between the two of them, they're really a fantastic pair to work with. And the other thing, aside from expertise, is obviously availability and someone who's there to help you out. So I think that's really important too. So I had this wonderful experience where I dropped a line to James before I'd ever met him, and I just said, hey, I'd like to do a Leverhulme with you, what do you think? And then the next day I got a reply and he said, hey, I'm actually in Oxford today, do you want to go for coffee? And so within 24 hours, we'd met in person, he'd given me advice, he was really positive. So I really, that's sort of what I really tell people to think a lot about, is your fit with the universities in terms of the mentors and how they can help you. And that does not at all need to be that they work on exactly the same thing as you. So
that's very interesting. No, that's very interesting. In a way, it's a bit like the PhD process. You find a supervisor whose research interests sort of closely match yours.
Yeah.
But it's, I think that's what I found in my personal experience, is trying to differentiate the PhD experience from the postdoc experience. Which leads me to my next question is, how did you choose your postdoc topic and how closely related is it to your PhD? Because I've heard that the PhD needs to be quite different, but related. So how do you manage that?
So that was quite a process of, trial and error for me. So I think, it takes time. When you finished your PhD, you're not going to find the perfect next project like this. To start with, I was applying for postdocs with research areas that were very close to my PhD, which had nothing to do with Iran. And then it became a case of, because I wasn't getting anywhere with those, I realized I need to be more ambitious. I need to think of a bigger project, something really new. And for personal reasons, I'd been learning Persian and getting interested in Iran. So then I started thinking, okay, is there a way I can bring this in, because this will help me stand out, because then I'm no longer someone who just does European literature. I become someone who does European literature and Iran. And then this was luck, because you need to find a topic no one else has done. I was really lucky to find that while there are so many publications on perhaps representations of Iran in 18th century French literature or in other kinds of 19th century literature, so, you know, Victorian or German,
Right.
there hadn't been as much done on 19th century France. So then, you know, that was the jackpot. It's finding
Very clever.
something that's big, that's exciting, but not many people have published on. So that's what I really recommend, but you have to expect it to be trial and error. You're not going to find it immediately.
Yeah, because and how related must it be to sort of the present day? I mean, do you need to make it relevant to just your field or to something even wider?
That's a really good question. I think because things are getting so much more competitive, I do think it's really important to have a spin that feels contemporary. So that doesn't mean your project
Mm,
itself has to be on something contemporary, but you have to be able to show it connects to big questions, big debates, things people care about. The caveat to that is I'd also think a lot about context where you're applying to. So, you know, Oxford and Cambridge, I mean, much as we like to think research everywhere is cutting edge, I don't think you know, they care as much about proving your research is contemporary. Whereas if you're applying for these big comparative grants like BA, like Leverhulme, I do think it is wise to put a spin on your project that taps into something current.
that's interesting. That's very interesting. And how long is your uh, fellowship for exactly?
Yeah, so this one is 3 years, which is great. I don't know how many years ago, but before it used to be 2 year fellowships, and
Right.
then at one point it changed to three, which is long enough to write a new book, basically. I think
Yeah,
anything
that's
under
incredible.
three, you need to
Mm,
be pragmatic. You know, you're not going to
fair
manage to
enough.
write a whole book with a 2 year fellowship.
But you can in 3 years. And does that 3 years go by quickly? How have you found those 3 years? Are you very different in terms of your research style from the start to now?
Yeah, I think it's mainly been really relaxing because
Oh, that's
if
nice.
you're an early career person,
Yeah,
the job market is so stressful.
it is.
So
Yeah.
having a contract that's for 3 years, you know, I'm always looking out for permanent posts, and now I have to anyway because I'm in my last year. But you're not under that pressure of, oh my God, if I don't get that job, you know, I'm unemployed.
Mm,
So that is really lovely having that security. And then with postdocs, obviously you don't have that big a teaching commitment. It varies based on the postdoc. With Leverhulme, they place a limit that you can't teach more than 3 hours contact time per week. And so that means that, again, you're never overwhelmed with
that's
work. It
nice.
always feels manageable. Whereas I know if you enter a permanent post, all of a sudden you need to
Mm,
teach all these modules you've never taught before, and it's a lot more overwhelming.
yes, I can imagine.
And the other
And
thing I'd add is it's valuable because it prepares you to like have all this research that you've done for then if you
mm,
get a permanent job, at least you put in all this work during your postdoc years. So I think
yes, that's
it has
true.
an effect more long term as well, which is helpful.
That's quite nice. And I mean, I suppose because after you finish a PhD, some people think, okay, we'll just go straight into a permanent job. But the postdoc seems like a very nice cushion in
Mhm.
between PhD and something more permanent. That's the impression I'm getting. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's great. And what
definitely.
advice do you have for someone who, like me, would like to stay in academia, especially if you finished your PhD or about to finish your PhD?
Okay, so I guess I'll reduce it to a few things.
Yes, I
I
know.
think
It's a
obviously
very big question, I
perseverance.
know.
Perseverance is so important because you're going to get rejections. You're going to get so many rejections, you
Yeah.
know. I'm sure I got at least 70 rejections before getting my Leverhulme. So yeah, you
Oh,
just
that's
have to
encouraging.
keep applying and not stop, you know? Um, so just, yeah, having that perseverance not to give up and feel like, oh my God, it's never going to happen. You just have to keep going. Um, what else? I think also being proactive about if you don't get a job immediately, what can you do to build your CV to make yourself more attractive? So
Right.
before getting my Leverhulme, I did things like you can apply for shorter grants or fellowships. I got one with the Queen's College, Oxford, which was for 1 year. I also did a 1 year master's at SOAS. Now, that was a privilege because I got a scholarship. Not everybody can just fork out to do another
Yeah,
master's. So, I'm
sure.
not saying that's what you have to do. But
But
basically,
that's
you're
good.
just always think about what can you do to make yourself more attractive as a candidate. Keep
Right.
building your skills, whether that's in publications or, doing a fellowship or doing a course or learning a
Of
language,
course.
whatever that is.
That's a good idea actually, because you also need something to keep your mind off the application process as well, because it can be quite discouraging.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Julia.
Yeah,
Thank you so
definitely.
much.
So also, it's nice in itself because it keeps you busy.
Exactly. Thank you
No
so much,
worries.
Julia,
I'm
for
I'm
this
glad I could help.
fantastic.
And good luck to everybody out there.
No, thank you. Thank you.